Hello everybody, this is Tom Bronak. Today I'm going to provide you with a briefing on the executive dashboard system that I have created in support of the infrastructure, the system development lifecycle, the recovery management process, and the compliance process contained within your organization. This presentation of the dashboards is based on how to achieve enterprise resiliency and corporate certification, where enterprise resiliency is the combination of all recovery disciplines under one umbrella, and corporate certification is to guarantee you adhere to the laws and regulations for all of the countries where your company conducts business. A lot of words. Dashboard that I'm going to show you is actually a conduit between people and the most current and accurate information that they need to do their job. The dashboard can be accessed from any place and at any time because it's PC based, so you can log on and get to it. It allows you to drill down to the actual person performing the work currently happening so that you can obtain additional status or provide assistance to that person and help them achieve their goals more quickly and put the project back on schedule. This product came about because I was working on a global project that crossed continents, countries, cultures, and languages. It was a 24/7 time zone type of project, so it was difficult to get people together in the same room, almost impossible. So most of the meetings were done through conference calls and remote meetings, and this became a real problem because people never had received the right information in front of them to base their decisions on or to receive instructions for work they had to do. In order to overcome this problem, I developed a dashboard system. The dashboard looks like this. It has an executive dashboard that is concerned about enterprise resiliency and corporate certification. It has an infrastructure dashboard whose responsibility it is to manage how resources are ordered, installed, redeployed, and terminated, as well as how they're added to the global inventory and to the configuration of the site in which they were installed. The system development lifecycle has to do with any new application or maintained application, and it provides the lifecycle under which the application can be placed into production. The recovery dashboard is used to safeguard the corporation from both an information technology disaster event or a business disaster event, and we'll go through that in detail. And finally, the compliance dashboard is used to help you understand the laws and regulations that your company has to adhere to. And in essence, that's considered the audit universe that you're responsible for complying with. Throughout this process, we've always taken the approach of planning for an event or building something. Then we activated it. And at the end of the activation, we had a communication session where we discussed the activities and we made recommendations for improvement. Those improvements are used to upgrade, and then we went through the cycle again and again. Through this process, we were able to achieve the best plan possible for everything that we worked on. Let's just talk about the flow of information within this dashboard so that you can understand best how to interpret it. Again, let's talk about a disaster event in which a location had to be evacuated because there was a fire, and after evacuation, the staff had to be transferred to a business recovery facility. Now, anytime you have a plan, things can go wrong. Well, when things go wrong, action items occur. Also, when you have a plan, there are sometimes when you need to contact other people. For example, suppose you're leaving your primary site and going to a secondary site. Your suppliers should be told to no longer make deliveries to the primary site, but to make them to the secondary site. Also, you need to maintain status reports of all the activities for this disaster event. You could have many disaster events, each of them having its own status report. All of that information then goes to the Contingency Command Center, whose responsibility it is to maintain control over all contingency or disaster events, whether they're for testing or for true activations. They in turn communicate to the Emergency Operations Center, whose responsibility it is to maintain the company operation even when a disaster event occurs. Finally, the Emergency Operations Center will talk to executive management, and executive management will project a single image of the corporation to the outside world, including the media, clients, employees, the community, which can include people you share a building with, or people you share a building park with, or people in the local community, the government, and families of those who may have been affected by the disaster event. Now, let's see more about that. Contact menu. You have many contacts that you have to be informed with. Those contacts could be executive management, the steering committee, the Emergency Operations Center, the Contingency Command Center, recovery teams, and so forth down the line. Suppose we have to inform the supply chain vendor of a relocation so that they can then reroute their supplies to the new location. This will provide you a list of the suppliers and their contact phone numbers, cell phone numbers, email addresses, and so on. It's quickly accessed, so you can get to whatever you want as quickly as you want at your fingertips. Now, this is a menu. What we went to was a sub-menu, and you can have sub-menus and so like that, so you can actually trace down to an actual event that may be occurring at that time. Okay. Now let's talk about action items. In this particular case, we have an action item list. The action items can be what the number of the action item is, what the status is, red, green, yellow, what the action description is, priority, and so on. Now, how about a status report? Now, a status report is, I had some problems when I just ran my tests, and here's what they are. The first one was that I did a business location recovery, and I found that 2 people were missing. Uh-oh, what do I do? The action item itself will then show you what happened and what activities you took to overcome that problem. Next one was my business recovery facility was full. I couldn't get there, so it changed my plans entirely, and I had to actually find a new recovery facility at an alternate site, and then I had to stock that alternate site with the equipment I needed and supplies I needed. Then I had to bring my staff there and then continue work from that location. Now, I actually destroyed my recovery time objectives in the process of doing that. Okay, now let's just say we want to take a look at the executive dashboard and how it relates to enterprise for resiliency and corporate certification. Now, first, what is enterprise resiliency and corporate certification? Well, wouldn't it be nice if I had a document that could tell me about that? And here's what the document looks like. It's a long document. I got to tell you that because it's very involved, but it's a good document, and it does provide you with all the information that you need. But there are quick ways of getting through it. You can simply go to a subject, click on it, and then you'll get that information. Information at your fingertips when you want it. That's the whole goal of this dashboard. Now let's look at the dashboard itself. Now the executive dashboard, as I said, is developed because we want to be able to achieve enterprise resiliency and corporate certification. And it's a very involved, complex project, so it had to be broken into phases and then tasks within those phases. Now we have 7 phases, 13 steps within each phase, for a total of 91 steps that have to be done. It's like walking to the gallows. The first step is management guidelines and goals. Second one is risk management goals and objectives. Then a business impact analysis, automated tools, because it's a large project, it'd be nice to have some automation to it. Creating recovery plans, initiating recovery plans, and having communication plans for the community and the rest of the individuals that you have to talk to. Now, in creating recovery plans, we have a business recovery plan, we have a DR exercise book, and we have a sub-menu or sub-dashboard that's dedicated entirely to recovery management. And we'll go through that in a few seconds. Again, I always like to be able to provide people with the information they need to do their job. Now, the first thing is, this is a dashboard. I've never seen it before, so wouldn't it be nice if I had a document of some type to explain to me what this dashboard is about? Well, lo and behold, we've done that. So we then talk about what the dashboard is. We talk about what a recovery management dashboard would look like, what the executive dashboard looks like for achieving enterprise resiliency, how you drill down into it, and how you find out the actual plan and connect yourself to the individual performing the work. And then it goes on explaining every single step, like here, phase management guidelines, what all those steps are in it, and providing you with a list of documents that should be produced at the end of that first phase. It's a complete document, so the people don't go into this uneducated, and they have a better understanding of what's going on. All right. Now, next thing is, since people really do not like to read, what I've done is I've created a PowerPoint presentation on the various dashboards and a video on the various dashboards. Now, the PowerPoint presentation will provide you with the actual step-by-step understanding. Now, the real thing here is that we had a very large project, and once we got over the bid and submitted a project plan, we had to, well, the project's goal was to get everything under the customer's control, and at present, everything was all over the place under vendor controls and outside the organizational structure. So we wanted to be able to build production data centers and a recovery data center. And how we went about it is we created an inventory of what they had in existence, moved that inventory to a production data center, then tested to make sure that the production data center could still provide the same services as was provided earlier. Then we transitioned the equipment to virtualized equipment and built the recovery site where we had a pool of resources that were extracted from whenever an application had to be tested and then dedicated to that application. We had to prove that the recovery site can indeed back up and recover the production site. And then finally we had to adhere to all the compliance laws within our audit universe. Now, the project itself was global, had many phases, many people, many documents. Conference calls and remote meetings were used to support the activities. Current and accurate data was our biggest problem, and coordination was very difficult because of the chaos and confusion caused by poor documentation. Controlling activities became difficult because people were out of sync, and that caused delays and it hurt our critical timeline. Status reporting was a shambles. We were slipping our delivery schedule, and the only way we could resolve these issues was by creating a library or a repository of all the information that was necessary to do this project, and then providing dashboards in front of it. So in order to get to the information, you had to go through a dashboard. So people would come in, go to the dashboard would select the information they needed and provide it to them. If the people made a change, that would come through the dashboard would save the old document as a +1, and then take the current document and add it to the library with the same name as the original, so that our links were not destroyed. We also found that in this process we could do databases as well as flat files, so we had a way of taking care of everything at one fell swoop, which was a nice, pleasant surprise. But as I said, people don't like to read, so what we did is we created videos for everything as well, so they can go to the video and see the same thing I just showed you, and that will be explained to. I'm all over the place. Okay. Okay, so now we got the videos out of the way, the dashboard descriptions out of the way. So into phase one, first thing you do is you define who's on the executive committee in the contact list, who is on the steering committee in the contact list. Then you want to start doing a risk assessment concept, basically saying, what is it that we really have to look at to understand what it is, what our requirements are for achieving enterprise resiliency and corporate certification. So technology risk assessment was done, and this is how we could do it. What is it? When is it required? What are the benefits? What's the involvement of people? What's the overall approach? Well, look at all the laws, create your universe, develop a model for actually performing an audit, apply that model, and develop IT plan controls over your environment, which will initiate planning, executing, controlling, and closing any outstanding problems. Again, it's nice to have it at your fingertips, so no matter who you are, everybody's dealing with the same document. Create a business plan and gain executive management. Well, we created a statement of work that was a business plan, and again, very involved so that you can go through each step of it. Okay, here you go. And it shows you the whole business plan and what we were trying to accomplish. And again, this document is something that you could, like the end goal here, you can get to real quick just by clicking on it. And our end goal was the Emergency Operations Center and how it supported the organization. Okay. Back to this guy. Okay, so now what we've got is the recovery plan, the business statement of work or the business plan. Recovery teams are defined, the responsibilities defined, people are assigned to work tasks, and then we have to develop a project plan, and a project plan is initiation of it, so we know that we do have a recovery facility that's capable of backing up. And then we had a plan for Europe, the Americas, and for Asia. As you can tell, they're all the same. First is the infrastructure readiness, which is taking the pool of resources that are in the recovery data center and allocating them for a recovery operation, whether it be an application or a service being a group of applications grouped together. We also, in the infrastructure readiness phase, would take the latest and greatest backup tape from the application or service and restore it at the recovery facility. And then we would go through synchronizing data between the recovery facility and the production site that housed the applications. We would also create a site recovery management replication of the production environment so that the applications could run at the recovery data center just as though they were the production site. And the last thing we did was create recovery IP addresses so that when a disaster occurred, we can restore the environment from the production to the recovery. We can synchronize data, and then we can switch them from the production IPs to the recovery IPs, and the end user doesn't even know there's a difference. The application can then be run using the normal application production job runbook because it would, again, be transparent to the user. So we had a planning phase, which was involved with management getting together with technical groups and determining what it was they wanted to accomplish and how, and what was going to prove it as a successful operation or a failed operation, and what steps had to be taken after that. The pre-test was that prior to the application going through testing, the recovery team would set up the environment and make it prepared to receive the application for testing. Then the actual test would occur, and then a post-test. And during the post-test, we would review what happened during the recovery test, generate a report and a presentation, give that report and presentation within a post-mortem meeting that was attended by management and recovery teams and executive personnel. Any kind of recommendation for improvement that was accepted would then be put into the recovery process, and by updating, testing, reviewing, updating again and again, you would achieve the best possible recovery process that you can for your company. Okay, next is the business impact analysis. Training materials, again, were provided for every single phase. In this case, how do you do a business impact analysis? Okay, and then how do you do automated tool selection, and so on down the line. Okay, now let's get to the last one here, documents. This is the actual initiation of a recovery event. Now, I'm going to show you this from a different point of view because I think it would be better to see it from that area. Okay, now we are beyond the executive dashboard, and we want to go into the sub-dashboards. Now, the first thing is we're trying to get an application into production, so the application does need resources. So how do we do that? We have an acquisition phase, a redeployment phase where we move it from the original site to another site, and a termination phase where we take the resource and release it from our environment. This is a more complicated step, and you have to adhere to a number of laws and regulations when doing this. So let's just watch what we do. When we acquire it, the resource, some work order is issued to acquire a resource. The architects and the engineers would get together and recommend a type of equipment that's required. They may even identify the vendors of that type of equipment, and they may even tell you which vendors are preferred for the company. The resources are then identified with the vendor and selected. Resources are ordered, they're delivered and installed, and once they're successfully installed, they're added to the global inventory and for the configuration for the site. When they're redeployed, personal data is erased from the resource depending on the company policy. Unnecessary programs are deleted. Additional programs are added. It's moved to its new location, installed, and then registered. The updated inventories would be updating the global and the site inventory, deleting it from its old site, adding it to its new site. The termination, well, when we erase data on the termination side, it has to be erased to the Department of Defense standards. So the data erasure is to a higher level. And that's because if you have medical data on it, you're in violation of HIPAA. If you have financial data on it, you're in violation of a number of rules and regulations. Once you've erased the data and guaranteed that it's erased, then you can donate, sell, use the equipment for disaster recovery support because you may want to extend the equipment's life cycle and put it into a business recovery site where the person only needs terminal to access the application. So you didn't need a real powerful PC, or you could scrap it. Remember, if you're going to scrap a piece of equipment, you better make sure you're certified to have that scrapped because any contaminants that are found on that equipment could relate to your having a violation of laws and regulations through the EPA and other regulatory requirement bodies, and you can be fined a lot of money. Believe me, you'll make this mistake once and you won't make it again. Then you have to update the registration so that you're deleting from your inventories. Now, all of the work that's performed during this is done by the infrastructure group. They pick up the equipment, they perform the erasures, they maintain the equipment and its status, and they respond to the requester when the work is performed and finished. Now, I've added some foils in the background here to show you what we did in this project, and that we looked at the user sites, we created an inventory. From that inventory, we were able to calculate the size of our production environments. From the size of our production environments, we were able to calculate our recovery site. And we created a resource pool of equipment, and then we dedicated from that resource pool to the applications that had to be certified as recovery. Lo and behold, as we went through this process, we found that there were metrics that we could report upon, and we found these metrics to be very helpful. Like the total number of projects being done at any time, and breaking them down into either what's being acquired, what's being redeployed, what's being terminated, and how our infrastructure staff is being used. We were able to talk about the number of active projects, the ones that are pending, the number of people assigned, what their hourly costs are, the average hours associated with each of these tasks, the total hours, and so on. So we were able to generate total cost associated with this project, active costs, which is what we've spent already, and pending costs, which is what we have yet to spend. We were also able to calculate percentages. I just never thought that metrics could have fallen out of this, but it sure did. We also developed a workflow management system because people were saying, I don't know what form to fill out or how to fill it out. So we created an interface between the user and the forms library to help them select the proper form. Once they were given the form, we were also providing them with a help screen to tell them what the form is all about, what its life cycle is, and what we expect them to put into the fields. When they entered the fields and they hit the enter button, data entry validation came about and told them if they had a mistake in the field and how to correct it. Once the form was completed, it went to a router. The router would then authorize the form. The selection process was the first step. It would assign it to an individual and route it from the first individual to the last. It would track it and log the time spent and the activities done. It would interact with the submitter so that the submitter can update instructions, gain status, or provide additional assistance. All changes in a history log were maintained until it was completed and accepted by the end user, by the originator. And then a chargeback was done, accounting was performed, and reporting was achieved so that you can optimize your workflow. Personnel they lived in a matrix, so we wanted to be able to pull from the matrix whenever we needed people, but we needed to know their title, their description, their functional responsibilities, what tools they used, and what the skill levels were, what documentation they needed, what their current skill level was, and how we can make improvements to that skill level to make them more ready for the work coming down the line, what training needs we needed, can we schedule them in time to get them assigned to a project task, and also what is their desired career path so we can help them achieve their own personal goals through this training, certification, and accreditation process that we have established. People would have a learning skills index, which would be a profile of their talents. They would then be put through training, orientation, whatever. If they wanted to learn about a new vendor product, like for example, we were opening up VMware and vSphere, and we wanted to get our top people, VMware certified professionals, VCPs, we would send them into a school and get that certification. They could become a business continuity professional, so on, like a project manager. So other times you would have a requirement for training that was outside of a vendor. Maybe it's a business type of training or a new technology that's only being introduced in universities. Then we could have an affiliation with a university where people can sign on and take online classes, or attend physical classes in physical classrooms, but they would get an accreditation. In either case, the certification accreditation should be added to the person's skills index, and he would have that to go forward with. The entire system looked like an automated personnel system so that we can recruit new people or contractors to help us do our work. Automated training system, all of it accessed through an internet, PC-based GUI interface. Users would have profiles. A tracking library would be used to see what is currently being performed, what's been done in the past, and what's being planned for the future. This became important because people have a tendency of repeating projects on and on, so anything in the future may have looked like something that was currently being performed or something that was performed in the past, and you can get a better understanding of how that project is going to lay out. We have a database management system for forms, and we had a documentation library for flat files. We would log all work, assign it, track it from first to end, measure it, analyze it, and report on it. Now, using that process, we were able to make great improvements to our workflow, and that helped us achieve our project goals more rapidly. Systems development lifecycle. Development maintenance all the way through. How it looks in the real world is that user will make a request, and he will provide the purpose, the business purpose of the request, the business data that it contained, who owned that data, how sensitive and critical the data was, who could use it, what restrictions were applied, and how often we should back it up and recover it. They also said that since this was an application or a client service that was critical, our business location also had to be backed up in a business recovery facility so that we could transfer our staff from this building to a business recovery facility and reconnect to production or to a disaster recovery facility and pick up business as we left off. When applications finished through development, we would go to testing, unit and system, but we also now, if you have a VM world, you can also take a copy of the production environment and put it into a test environment and then run your normal testing against that so that you can see that it would be you would better be able to see that the application can indeed run in a production world. You can also do your recovery testing there. Both the documentation for the testing and the recovery can be added to the QA documentation so that production acceptance would have all the information they needed to support an application and set up the production environment to run the application. The production environment would then do file records management and either tape backups or online backups or incremental backups, or if you're in the VM world, a recovery point application which would synchronize data between the production environment and the recovery environment. Okay. One thing, as you're going through the development cycle, there are many forms you have to fill out in each phase. Again, this could be linked to the main form that's tracking everything. When you finish something, you can write a date there, finish another thing, write a date there. Finally, you get to a point where there's no date, so you can link from there to a submenu, which will provide you a link to all of the documents that are being produced or actions being performed. And you would have red, green, yellow to tell you that it's been done. If it's green, it's active, it's yellow, and if it's red, it's pending to be done soon. So you go down to where the yellow is, you click on it, gives you the form of the actual work, and it tells you who's performing the work. You can click on that person's name, contact him directly, and take advantage of that direct drill down to the individual. A chargeback system would be that when they make the request, so they make the request as a work order, all the work that's done is done as a purchase order. You accumulate purchase orders to get a total and use that to charge back to the user. Now, this became an important issue because we had a lot of projects that were similar in nature, and this was a good way of judging how much that project was going to cost. The recovery dashboard was constructed in such a fashion where we had planning, application recovery certification, and IT, and business location, evacuation, and relocation to a recovery site. So we had the three categories of plans, We had a library management system, and we had a status reporting system. And we had a sub-dashboard so that we could do all of our performance or recovery operations from this dashboard. The dashboard started out with the statements of work, such as that project overview we had, training materials, presentations. These will all be linked to directly from here. Exercise booklets, so if we wanted to get to the DR exercise booklet, we can do that. DR exercise booklet was one of those fill-in-the-blank type things. And again, most of it was done, so it wasn't that difficult to complete. Anytime you saw yellow, you had to fill in those blanks, like what's the description of the application, what's the exercise overview, scope, how do we know it was successful, how do we know it failed. Also, we had the ability to jump any place in the document that we wanted. For example, we could jump to the appendix. And in the appendix, we could jump to any kind of document that we may want, like an application profile inventory. Let's try this guy. Okay. There's the application inventory, number of servers, what their names are, what applications reside on the servers, what the production IP address is, what the recovery IP address, and this is where we switch from one to the other, the status of completion, any comments. So it was easy enough to fill out the book then, and it provided us with the information we needed to do our work, and that was fine. Now, again, we have some additional information, and one thing I wanted to show you is that, again, metrics fell out because we were able to say how many new DR tests do we have scheduled, how many repeat tests. That's just, once we have a test done, we may have to repeat that test every year. So we've got 16 done, we've got 35 projected, new projects for repeats. How many have we completed? How many post-mortem meetings? Now, we have 20 completed, so we have 20 post-mortem meetings, but we only have 16 done because four post-mortem meeting reports and presentations are still being worked on. Total cost, average active cost, pending cost, same thing. Total cost, active, pending, and percentage of completion. I got to tell you, I was really amazed to see how the metrics fell out. Okay. The compliance dashboard, again, we would look at the entire laws and regulations worldwide, select those laws and regulations we had to adhere to, make that our audit universe. We would examine to see if we had gaps, exceptions, and obstacles. We would then clean up those gaps, exceptions, and obstacles, and then write a letter of attestation saying that we are in compliance. We have a form that goes with that. And a form will allow you to say, here's the law, here's who is assigned to it, here's the activity, review the law, develop an audit universe, establish audit procedures for that particular law, perform the audit and list gaps, exceptions, and obstacles, mitigate and mediate, report, re-perform, so let's put a dash in there, re-perform the audit to ensure a problem has been repaired. So you want to go back and do the audit a second time to make sure there's no gaps and exceptions. Create a management report on the findings, create management presentation on the findings, generate a letter of attestation, develop the audit cycle, which is once a month, once every year, conduct the audits as per the cycle, and report on it. Now I made the change, so I have to save it, and then I can close it. And that form is updated going forward, and you'll always be able to see the same form. Okay. Now I have some laws that are here and something like that, but I have a much greater write-up on that in the training material that's in the executive management dashboard for information for enterprise resiliency and corporate certification. Okay, now the DR exercise. Now there's something here on each of the outsides of these boxes is training material. So if you want to find out what's going on, you can click on the outside of the box. And in this case, we're provided with a form. In this case here, we might be provided a form with a document. So you do. So the outside of the box is used to provide the information, and the inside of the box is used to perform the function. This way, everything is tied together. Now, again, we're going to actually execute a plan for a business location. So we have the business continuity plan on the outside. And on the inside of the box, we would have the project plan. Now the project plan here, I want to just show you a couple of things here just to make sure you understand why it's important. First of all, in the notes area, I list everything that has to be done. But another thing is in the general area and in the resource area specifically, you have the resources who are assigned to it and what their cost is and how it's charged. It could be daily, hourly, so on like that. And who they report to. And this would be a purchase order against a work order charged by the hour at $65 an hour. And then when you see that he has 28.2 days, that's 28 times 8, and then 2 hours after that perhaps. So he has a lot of hours, and that's what the cost would be. All from the project plan. So it's wise for you to utilize the project plan so that you can get your costing accurate and maintain it going forward. Now let's look at an actual business recovery plan. It's a business recovery plan. Okay, this plan is, first of all, it's the site contact list I talked to you about, so I can get to my vendors. This is a site evacuation plan, which is almost cookie cutter for every site that you have. Disaster event occurs. What is it? Fire is recognized in their break room, and a microwave oven has caught fire. Since it's a microwave oven, electrical fires have a lot of smoke associated with it. It's become a very intensive smoky event. A disaster declaration has to be performed, but you have to pre-assign somebody who has the authority to declare a disaster. The recovery team leaders are notified. They notify their members. Recovery plan is initiated. The first step of the plan is to evacuate the site, which is under the control of fire marshals. And then everybody is designated to meet at a predefined assembly point for a head count and to wait further instructions. But a problem has occurred. What is that problem? After the head count, it was found that 2 people were missing. Uh-oh. Who did the head count? Oh, it's this guy, Tom Bronack. Yeah? He's been known to screw up before. Let's talk to him. Oh, there's his phone number, there's his email, and there's his instant message. All right, so I got to the individual, show you how I drilled down to him. Now, I'm writing an action item because I had to inform the world of the problem and what actions are being taken going forward. 2 people missing from the head count. Well, we recognize 2 people are missing from the head count, but we're continuing to look for them. We ask everybody around, have they seen him? Yeah, I saw him this morning. I just don't see him today or now. The command center is notified. Then we obtain instructions from the command center, and they basically say, well, it looks like you're going to have to relocate to the business recovery site, so prepare your people to do that. And if anybody is not going, continue to have them interviewed and assist in locating the missing people. First responders are notified. Police department says, no, we have everything cordoned off. We haven't seen anybody leave the building. Emergency medical technicians say, well, we haven't provided treatment to anybody and we haven't taken anybody to the hospital. The fire department steps up and says, well, it was a smoking condition. We didn't realize you had people missing. We're going to go back in and we're going to search more with utilizing our specialized equipment, and hopefully we'll be able to locate them. The command center is notified of what the first responder said, and then finally, after some time, good news comes back from the fire department. They found the two missing people. They were both found unconscious and suffering from smoke inhalation, but they were alive. Emergency medical technicians provide on-site treatment and rush the people to the hospital. Management notifies the families of the people rushed to the hospital, so they in turn rush to the hospital to be alongside their loved ones. After a period of time, the hospital gets back with us and says, everybody's going to make a full recovery. We'll probably have them released from the hospital in a day or two. Well, in that case, everybody is euphoric and happy. And you know what? Management looks great because they actually took the time to follow through with some lost people, and it shows that this company cares about its people. Yay, management. All right, now we continue on with our process. Contingent command center, they're notified of the missing people and the activities that they've been found. They provide instructions for evacuation. The primary site is protected by the security department and local police department. This is going on in parallel. And a salvage and restoration vendor is called so they can salvage the environment and restore it back to its original condition. All right, now it's time to go to the recovery facility, business recovery facility. So we make a call. And when we call them up, they turn around and say to us, sorry guys, we're full. Other companies have declared a disaster too, and we have a first come, first served policy, so we can't allow you into the building because we don't have any room for you. Uh-oh, that's an action item. So we have action item number 2. The action item is building, the recovery building is full. What do we do now? Executive management makes a plea to them. Unfortunately, there's no room for them. You're going to have to do something else. So a reciprocal agreement has to be made, or a temporary office space has to be sought. So we either have to go to somebody else who has extra space, or we have to go find some sort of office location where we can put our staff. Personnel directed to go home and await further instructions. But those who are able to log on to continue work from home are told to do so. Those people who are authorized to log on from home and have computers with access to the company network continue to work from home. Those that do not have a computer or access await further instructions. Work is partially restored by authorized personnel who have home computers, but the volume of work cannot be maintained in this limited manner. Management must notify clients of the limited volume that they can handle right now, causing clients to suffer and violating service contracts for some. Limited operations are restored, but suppliers and other critical information will not be available, causing quality to suffer. Clients are starting to complain, and the media has begun to notice the flaws in preparation, which can damage the company's reputation. An alternate site is located through a reciprocal agreement or the rental of alternate space. But now some needed equipment and supplies delay startup of the recovery service. Required equipment is determined and arrangements are made to obtain the resources needed to continue operations. The clock is still running, and the company already missed its recovery time objective. Clients are getting mad, and the media is circling the management suite. Company reputation is being discussed in public by the media. That's not what you want. Well, word is coming back that the primary site may be ready to reoccupy in a few days, so arrangements are made to return to the primary site. The salvage and restoration teams are completing their work, and the site is being scheduled for review by management to gain approval for the return of the staff. Management is anticipating that the primary site will be available in a day or two, but now arrangements for return are starting to have some difficulties because return plans are altered from the original plan. The original plan was to return from the business recovery site, but now we're not at that site, we're someplace else. Luckily, the primary site is ready for staff to return because management did the review, everything's okay. But how do we make sure that we can get back there without a plan? So the Emergency Operations Center, the Contingent Command Center, and DR teams get their heads together and develop a plan. Management and DR teams approve the newly developed return plan, and actions are taken to initiate the plan. The newly developed return plan is initiated, and people start returning to their primary site, while others continue to support operations from the secondary site. You gradually turn over. Primary return team starts up primary site and makes preparations for work to return to normal. Normal operations are gradually brought up successfully, and the secondary staff is told to prepare to return to the primary site. The entire staff is returned to the primary site, and normal business operations is restarted, but they are very far behind and have got a lot of work to do in order to catch up. Clients are notified of the return, and the media is appraised of the situation. Efforts are started to restore any damage to the company reputation. A slow return to normal is being accomplished, and clients are calming down, but the media is a little harder to satisfy, and they are still asking many questions. Now, claims are being made against the company by its clients and regulators who say that we missed deadlines for regulatory requirements, and fines may be coming down the road as well as the lawsuits. Executive management, legal, and the auditors are involved in responding to the clients and the regulators, but they also realize there's a long legal battle pending, and right now their concern is to understand what the problem was and make assurances that the problem does not occur again. So they have a post-mortem, they review lessons learned and what teaching events they can get from those lessons, and that will lead to a better response to a disaster event, especially a disaster event of this type. The disaster events are reviewed and discussed, problems are identified, and corrective actions defined. Improvements to the disaster recovery process are formulated and implemented so that this type of failure does not occur again. A more improved disaster recovery approach and plan is developed as a result of the postmortem. And finally, the importance of disaster recovery planning is made clear to management, which is really a good step forward. Management speaks to the employees to thank them for their efforts. The media is briefed, and clients are fully informed about the failures encountered and the progress that will be made in the future to overcome these problems from even happening. A full disclosure is accepted by most people, and the company reputation is on the mend. Now, lawsuits from clients and regulators must be addressed. A return to normal operations is accomplished, and a gradual move forward is accomplished. The future looks better than the past. Well, in this particular case, management didn't appear and the company did not appear as good as they did in the first situation where they recovered their staff and everybody was fine. In this particular case, they had a little more difficulties. But everything in the end worked out. So now you understand what this dashboard is all about, what the sub-dashboards are all about, and how you can utilize it to gain information immediately and drill down to a person actually performing the task. So why use dashboards? You have quick access to the current and accurate information you need to do your job. It can be accessed from anywhere and at any time. If you're a manager and you're worried and it's interrupting your sleep, you can simply get up, go to your terminal, log on, look at the status report, and see what's happening. That might allow you to get back to sleep, or it may keep you up even longer. You're allowed to drill down to the person performing the current task. You can then discuss activities with that person, supply them with help, and in essence try to get the project back online. You can connect to the person actually performing work, provide them with assistance. Its product supports conference calls and remote meetings. It reduces confusion for sure and chaos, and I believe it's the most efficient way to address documentation requirements for projects and real-time activities. Through this use of the dashboard, you will be better able to complete projects on time and within budget. Should you have any questions or comments or just simply want to talk to me, I can be found at my email address, bronact@dche.com. What do I want to do? Well, if you believe that this approach can help your company improve performance and bring products and services to market more rapidly, then contact me. There's my name, my phone number, my email. I would love to assist you in integrating this approach within your own environment. Remember, this approach uses your existing data, So you do not have to change information to adopt to this product. Rather, we adopt to you. We're simply a faster way to get to the most current and accurate information available so that your staff does not fumble and you can achieve your project deliverables more rapidly, thereby saving you time and money and having the company be more efficient. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. I certainly did. I'm a little bit talked out, but that always happens. Of course, if you need me, contact me. And I hope you enjoyed the presentation and you got as much out of it as I did in delivering it. And I hope to speak to you soon. Bye now. Have a nice evening or day or night.